Hey all, so for this video, we're going to be looking at plants, and plants is broken up into a whole bunch of different components. It's a segment in a bunch of different chapters. So I've just pulled all those little pieces out and put them all together. So this is from B3.1, and we're going to be looking at transpiration, and we want to be thinking about how do plants carry out gas exchange. So what is their structure so that they're able to function and get the carbon dioxide that they need? So we're going to be looking at pages 262 to 265 for this. So in order for photosynthesis to happen, gas exchange has to happen in the leaves, which means that it needs to bring in carbon dioxide and remove oxygen. And so they do that through these little holes in the leaves, which are called stomata, and they're opened and closed by two cells called guard cells. But the challenge is that when they're open, not only can they bring in carbon dioxide and release oxygen, but they're also losing water. And so they have to strike a balance between how much water they're losing through evaporation and how much carbon dioxide they're getting in order to create glucose. So plants have a few adaptations that help them deal with this, and these are going to look different in different ecosystems. So obviously in a desert ecosystem, this is going to look different than it would in, let's say, Finland. So waxy cuticles on the surfaces of leaves are waterproof, and so they're going to prevent evaporation from the surfaces of the leaves. This is on the top and the bottom surface of the leaf. And then they have guard cells, which are going to open and close the stomata. They tend to have more stomata on the bottom of the leaf because that's out of direct sunlight. So it's going to get less hot on the bottom surface of a leaf. So when the stomata are open, CO2 uptake is high, water loss is high. They're open in the daytime when there's sunlight and when water levels are high. Transpiration, which is the pull of water from the roots up through the xylem to the leaves, is going to happen when the stomata are open. And this is how plants get their water. They need to pull it up from the ground. And so the stomata need to be open in order for transpiration to occur. When the stomata are closed, the CO2 uptake is low, water loss is low, and this is controlled by a hormone called abscisic acid, which prevents dehydration in plants. They will also close these at night for some plants, because what's going on is, like we talked about in the last video, for photosynthesis, there's two reactions happening in the chloroplast. The first reaction is the light reaction, and that's making ATP, and then they're taking that ATP and they're sending it to the dark reaction, which is in chloroplast also, and then they're making glucose. So if they run out of ATP, then they can't make the glucose. Some plants called CAM plants are actually adapted so that they can be open at night, their stomata, and then they can pull in carbon dioxide that they can then use during the day when the plant can make enough ATP to create glucose. So when we're looking at leaf structure here, CO2 is going to enter through the stomata here, and it's going to diffuse, this is the bottom of the leaf here, through the spongy mesophyll, which has lots of air pockets in here. This is the top of the leaf, and the palisade mesophyll are very good at absorbing sunlight. So a lot of the photosynthesis is going to be happening in here. So it's going to diffuse through these pockets of spongy mesophyll, which have a large surface area to volume ratio, and they're always moist. And that CO2 is going to be used in photosynthesis, both in the spongy mesophyll and also in the palisade mesophylls. Oxygen is produced, and it will diffuse back out through the stomata here at the bottom of the leaf through the hole. Some water loss occurs through evaporation, but is replaced via the xylem tissue. So xylem tissue is the tubes that are going to carry water through the plants, and they're connected to the leaf via leaf veins, and therefore to the spongy mesophyll area that needs to remain moist. And some of this is evaporative loss through the stomata. Two factors that can play a role in water loss would be high water vapor. So if it's really humid surrounding the leaf, that means they're going to lose less water due to evaporation. And if it's higher temperatures, that means that the air itself can just hold more water vapor. So it could mean, without humidity, that more water is lost. So if we are looking here at loss of water due to those two factors, we are going to be thinking about high temperature means more evaporation because air can hold more water. So if it's not humid, then those plants, like a desert, those plants are going to be at risk for losing a lot of water when their stomata are open. But if it's high humidity, so you think Singapore maybe, then it's going to be low evaporation, loss of water, because diffusion is less possible of those water molecules out through the stomata. And so here are some pictures of different plants and their stomata and how many stomata they have covering a leaf surface. So that is something that we can measure. We can measure something called stomatal density. And that's the mean number of stomata in an area of view under a microscope. And so different plants, as well as top versus bottom of leaves, have different density of stomata. So to summarize, gas exchange occurs on moist surfaces through the stomata of the leaves. Stomata close to limit water loss, but also that limits CO2 intake. Water movement out of a leaf is called transpiration, and that's going to be affected by humidity and temperature. And stomatal density can vary based on plant species and area on a leaf. All right, thanks for watching this video. That is all for this one.